Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me with this talk. And I'm currently an assistant professor at University of Delaware in the Department of Computer and Information Science. The lab I'm directing is called Computational Intelligence for Dynamical Systems, and you'll see why it's called Dynamical System. And I joined the department last year in August. So before that, I want to give a brief overview of my background. So I was a postdoc fellow at Reagan Institute of Mass General, MIT, and Harvard with a secondary affiliation to MIT Biological Engineering. My work was mostly on computational biology. And before that, a few years before, I earned my PhD degree in fluids and thermal sciences in the School of Engineering at Brown University with a master's degree in applied mathematics. So basically, all of my thesis work were on computational work. And you're going to see some of my work in the later slides. Before that, I was a bachelor at Shanghai Jiaotong University in engineering mechanics. So the research theme of my lab is basically focusing on machine learning and multiscale modeling. So machine learning, you guys may be very familiar with. It's basically a data-driven approach which help us uncover the theories or mechanism behind the data. While multiscale modeling, maybe some of you know that it's based on some theory, for example, physics or biology, and chemistry, building up these first principle models to mimic more complex systems. And I'm going to show why and how we should integrate them for our future research. And the general direction of my lab is on, different directions like multi-scale modeling, we do it independently, and then also deep learning for sequential data prediction and decision making. And scientific computing is solving differential equations, ordinary differential equations, partial differential equations. And the multi-scale model means that when we are looking at a set of observations or events or systems, we can zoom in into very low scale or zoom out into a very large scale. And then what we did in the multi-scale modeling is that we develop mesoscale models or continuum level models to capture different scales, how the systems behave. And then simultaneously, we use deep learning, which is which is basically neural networks. And neural networks is derived from like the biological neurons, where the different neurons mimic like we have multiple layers of neurons to mimic a very complex function that we cannot approximate using our existing analytical functions. And this is basically a sketch of using deep neural network to solve the differential equations, which is a combination of my second and third direction, and is integrating multi-scale modeling and machine learning. So I want to briefly talk about multi-scale modeling. So we basically mostly focusing on biophysics modeling with the help of high performance computing facilities like GPU, etc., or like CPU parallelization. So here are two very interesting examples from my past PhD lab developed by a senior lab mate. So you can see that this is a digital, we call it digital twin, basically the digital surrogate of our red blood cells. So it's called OpenRBC, and it can mimic both biomechanical property, and we're trying to incorporate some chemical properties by building these digital cells. This is a very excellent example of multi-scale modeling in single cell dynamics level. And if you scale up the system, you can even mimic a complex system. For example, here is simulating the red blood cell dynamics with white blood cell denoted by the green particles here passing over, or like cancer cells passing over the microfluidic devices we designed with our experimental collaborators. And what I did in the past is basically utilizing or developing this deep dissipative particle dynamics modeling, which is a so-called Lagrangian model, which does not require we discretize the system into meshes, and it's a particle-based model. So you can see all the simulations here. Although you see the red blood cells being smooth, they're actually behind the scene is actually particles. And then the general principle of dissipative particle dynamics is that we ask the system to observe physical and chemical constraints using the chemical potentials that we design, and such that the particle in the system will follow will observe the following three different forces. One is a conservative force, second is the dissipative force, and then the random force. And when we summing them all together, we can tune the parameters in the model such that in the macro scale, the observation follows what we observe from the experiments. On the right, you can see how this method being powerfully used to simulate, for example, a thrombus formation, which many of you probably know it's a critical like a blood clot situation where the cells are being aggregated around the inflammation spots, which will probably cause the blood to stop flowing and tissue death. So the second direction of my research is on like deep learning for sequential data prediction, and specifically with this example is a time series prediction in type 1 diabetes. So many of you probably know American Diabetes from American Diabetes Association that the type 1 diabetes is a very globally disease, and it affects 2 million of Americans, and most of them are really young. And I don't need to talk about the details, but now people are mostly using the continuous glucose monitoring to monitor their glucose and trying to make smart decisions. And the artificial pancreas has been developed for decades to help optimize the glucose levels. And this part, our contribution focused on helping the first step of artificial pancreas, which is automatically utilizing the automatically monitored glucose level to predict the future glucose levels and help calculate the second step of calculating the amount of insulin. And you can see from the real-world diabetes glucose time series, where the x-axis is the time and the y-axis is a blood glucose, and each line denotes one patient's record. You can see from these patients, they have really large inter-patient variability, and also meaning that the different curves looks differently, and the intra-patient variability, meaning that if you focus on only one curve, the glucose level is actually kind of not stable, especially those regions that we care about actually have a small data issue, where meaning that, for example, we really focus on the low glucose level, and the glucose level being really low actually only take up a very few part of the overall recording of one patient. And to trying to capture the complex dynamics, we develop both like a recurrent neural network, which has been very powerful in like the natural language processing task, which is basically also sequential data. The second model we focus on is a convolutional neural network denoted by the CNN here, which has been really powerful in processing imaging data, which is a 2D kind of data. And then the last one we worked on is the transformer, a so-called transformer model, which utilize a very important mechanism called attention here. The architecture looks like here, but they're all built on neural networks. And this is actually the backbone of supporting a lot of current excellent AI products, for example, ChatGPT, and also the AlphaFold 3. Simultaneously, my lab now is also focusing on protein structure prediction, especially with my postdoc experience on working on antibody data sets. We are particularly interested in, predicting the antibody structure and linking them to the functionality or property of the antibody. And many of you have noticed that the past Nobel Prize has been given to Professor David Baker working on computational design of computational protein design for his contributions. And we are trying to using both multi-scale models or mechanistic models based on physics to help us probing the relationship between structure and property, as well as using data-driven models to see if there are any undiscovered mechanism or patterns that the multi-scale model cannot capture. So the third direction of my research lab is finally the integration of multi-scale modeling and machine learning, and we call it as a physics-informed machine learning, because we're trying to solve differential equations, which is representing those multi-scale models with deep learning, which is a part of the machine learning algorithms. As you can see, from this sketch, this is a neural network architecture. It will be using as a surrogate of the input of your partial differential equations, such that when you substitute the architecture of the neural network and the required neural network output to observe the principles of represented by the partial differential equation, then we can solve the neural networks. And then we can solve the partial differential equation. There are many different motivations to do so. One of them, one of the most powerful, interesting part that I focus on is solving inverse problem in differential equations. And by meaning of solving inverse problem is that we are trying to infer the hidden parameters and hidden states governed by the partial differential equations with only partial observations. For example, in my glucose and insulin dynamics trajectory, with current technologies, we can only observe glucose level over time in the system. But for example, the insulin, either the circulating insulin in our plasma or functioning insulin inside our tissue are critical states or species that we want to observe, but with current technologies, we cannot do that. And the reason we're using a neural network to do that is because to solve the inverse problem is first, neural networks are known to be able to approximate complex patterns compared to other machine learning algorithms. And second, neural network has a very important mechanism. Two important mechanism. One is gradient descent, which is basically automatic differentiation of your data, and the second is backward propagation. Both are very important in solving differential equations. I'm going to skip the math part, but basically this is how we design neural networks such that it will help us both keep the neural network output observing our data record, for example, wearable CGM, and as well as the ordinary differential equations, maybe like representing the mechanism of the process that we want to observe, that we observed. And then also the initial value, meaning it's just like auxiliary constraint. So that was basically more abstract information of the glucose insulin dynamics. But what in actually implementation is that we take the data from different wearable devices. For example, insulin pump recording how much insulin was given to the patient, and also the fitness band, which record exercising, record exercise intensity, and also CGM recording the glucose level over time. And we put them into a computational algorithm and trying to also both create such a digital twin of patients' glucose insulin dynamics. And then we're trying to control the glucose levels by changing the insulin pump in another set of hypothetical scenario, such that in that optimization, the patient will have normal glycemia over time. And these are the specific ordinary differential equation that we use to define the glucose insulin dynamics terms. And then this is a neural network model that we developed to help solve these differential equations. Okay, so that will be all. And thank you so much for your attention. If you feel any of my research interesting, please don't hesitate to reach out to me at my email address listed here. Also, other informations are listed here too.